His budget is a stunning record high, $127 billion for fiscal year 27. It includes cuts to the New York Police Department, rent freezes, and increased spending on migrants. $1.2 billion for that last one. For comparison here, the mayor's proposal is nearly $10 billion more expensive than the entire budget of the state of Florida, even though that state has 3 times NYC's population. Look at the screen. The Wall Street Journal editorial board had some choice words for the mayor. Here's a quote. Mr. Mamdani's attempt to extort Ms. Hochul over taxes is part of a broader battle in the Democrat Party. If he prevails, expect more Democrats to imitate his class warfare and hostage-taking. First of all,
why? Oh, she hates America, and she was born here. How about that?
But a ribbon cutting, well, a ribbon cutting means homes for New Yorkers. We look forward to coming back to this site that we might be able to welcome families to this new development. Thank you so much, Mayor Mamdani. Thank you. But I want to tell you something, Mayor. Metro IAF is here.
That's right. You shut up.
Metro IAF.
He's a Trojan horse. He hates America.
The mayor, with the greatest respects, in every campaign speech, in every debate where you engage, we opened our ears to listen. Now today, accept the words echoing from us now. Do your job as mayor and leave our taxes out.
Having only 2 options. You're saying if we don't tax the rich, then I gotta increase property taxes. We are not a pawn in Southeast Queens. We are not part of your negotiation tactics. Zoran Mamdani, you are out your goddamn mind.
What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you guys pulling up today, man. If you are paying attention, that $127 billion budget that Zoran Mamdani just dropped should concern not just New Yorkers, but other people around the country as well. I mean, come on, man. This dude rolled out a $127 billion budget. Yes, you heard it right. That is record-breaking spending. And where is the money going? We're talking billions towards equity programs, gender offices, migrant services. Yeah, they're giving billions of dollars to illegal immigrants. Layers upon layers of government bureaucracy, while everyday New Yorkers are still dealing with rising costs, struggling neighborhoods, and quality of life issues. And at the same time, you've got concerns about police funding and rent control tightening and more pressure being put on the people already carrying the tax burden. And this is what, makes folks raise an eyebrow. That budget is pushing close to $10 billion more than entire states like Florida. And Florida has more people in it. That is insanity. It is insanity. And this dude cut funding from the police department, and yet there's issues right now in the police department because people are fleeing the department at this point. And there's some concerns about, New York NYPD, cutting overtime for the people that are still there. It is a mess up there right now.
The suspect were working overtime as New York City police officers, something the NYPD has been cracking down on under Mayor Mamdani, according to the New York Post. That is raising concerns about the department losing thousands of veteran cops who would retire right now. Correspondent Alexis McAdams reporting live from One Police Plaza in Lower Manhattan. As this starts to play out in a practical sense, these police officers are leaving the ranks. Alexis.
Martha, that's right. When they have their time coming up and they see that their overtime could be getting cut, they say, I'm out of here. Because as we know, being a police officer in any city, especially in the Big Apple, is far from easy. So that's what could be happening. And those overtime cuts come, as you just mentioned, those officers that jumped into action there when a man's running around with a machete inside of that busy area. They were working overtime. And when you talk about cutting overtime, that means those people could not have been there. It's just one reason that morale here with the NYPD just keeps sinking. So take a look here. We're going to go through some of the recent cases that police advocates say are just terrible. Police advocates talking about this. A recent court decision, a slap in the face to officers. This man right here is the former NYPD Sergeant Eric Duran. Some in law enforcement calling his sentencing outrageous because he's looking at nearly a decade behind bars. Back in 2023, Duran threw a cooler at a guy who was fleeing a drug bust in the Bronx. The guy falls off the scooter, Martha, and he later died, but he's going to prison now. Bruce Blakeman, the Republican candidate running for governor of New York, says people are more concerned about criminals than the cops. That's
Crazy. And the crazy thing is that voters in New York City, they have no recourse. There's no ability, you know what I'm saying, for them to do a recall on this guy. They have to deal with it. And the 6 million people in New York City that decided to abstain from voting, this is what it is. This is what it is. You're going to have to deal with this. This is wild what's going on up there, man. It's wild.
It is a goal of our administration to lower the speed limit across the city to 20 miles an hour. That, however, is something that can only be done with a local law change to the city administrative code. And we do support the city council taking those efforts.
Yeah, so they want to lower the speed limit all throughout the city to 20 miles an hour, which what they plan to do is put cameras up. And when you go over, they're going to send you a bill. You're basically going to get a fine. This is a tax. They got to get money some kind of way. Now, here it is. He said that the city they got a crazy deficit, and he released a $127 billion budget with all types of foolishness going on. Crime is up in the city, but yet they cut police. They cut funding to bring on more police, and they're cutting the overtime. Boy, this summer in New York is going to be wild.
I have thought often of the Margaret Thatcher quote. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. If anything, my friends, it seems that you eventually need a socialist to clean up the mess.
Socialism has never worked anywhere on the planet. It's not going to work in New York City. The only thing it's going to do is put the city in more debt than what it's already in. And it seems to me like this dude's trying to bankrupt New York City. That's what it seems like.
Zoran Mamdani moving ahead with his plan to open government-run grocery stores, announcing the first of 5 sites will be up and running next year. Fox Business correspondent Madison Allworth reports live from our New York City newsroom. A lot of people are saying it takes a year to open a grocery store.
And a lot of money, too, John. This first store is going to cost $30 million. That's nearly half of the $70 million budget that Mayor Mamdani has proposed for all 5 city-run grocery stores. He announced this first one last night at his 101st day celebration. The store is going to be located in East Harlem in La Marqueta, and the plan is for it to be open next year.
We are building a brand new store on city-owned land currently sitting empty in East Harlem. A neighborhood where nearly 40% of households receive public assistance or SNAP in the past year.
Because it's on city-owned land, they will not have to pay rent on the property. Mamdani pointed out that grocery prices in the city have increased since the pandemic, but he failed to point out how city-run grocers in other cities have failed to actually help residents. Similar efforts in places like Kansas City have struggled to stay afloat despite millions in taxpayer dollars. Sun Fresh Market permanently closed this August after suffering from high crime, empty shelves, and unsustainable losses. So despite over $17 million in taxpayer investments since 2016, the project failed to provide a stable food source. But it's full steam ahead for city-owned grocery stores here in the Big Apple. Mamdani promised on the campaign trail the grocery stores will be available in each borough. He says that will be accomplished by the end of his term. John?
It's not going to work. We covered it. We covered the grocery store out in Kansas City. The shelves were empty and it closed. There was another one down in Florida, similar situation. This stuff doesn't work. It's been tried before. It doesn't work, man. This is wild.
Also just received information that new data in the state school aid formula will bring an additional $97 million to New York City on a recurring basis. All of that brings the fiscal deficit down to $5.4 billion. But I want to be clear, $5.4 billion is still a very steep mountain to climb. And there are 2 paths that we can walk. One that offers long-term stability, and a second one with significant pain that we deeply hope to avoid. The first path repairs the structural imbalance between the city and the state, We want to work with Albany to raise personal income taxes by 2% on the 33,000 New Yorkers earning more than $1 million a year, and to raise corporate taxes on the most profitable corporations. And we know that for far too long, New Yorkers have given far more to the state than what we have received in return. It is time to end the drain. If we cannot follow this first path, we will be forced onto a much more damaging path of last resort, one where we have to use the only tools at the city's disposal, raising property taxes and raiding our reserves. The second path is painful. We will continue to work with Albany to avoid it. This first path will deliver the structural change that we need to recalibrate the relationship between the city and the state. Because as we know, New Yorkers contribute 54.5% of state revenue, but receive only 40.5% back. At the same time, New York City's portion of the state's GDP has grown by nearly 10% since 2010.
Tax, 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 and more tax. That's the Democrat Party for you, man. That is the Democrat Party for you. In New York City, they've lost so many businesses. They've lost billions in tax revenue. And this is only going to exacerbate that issue. There's no way the people that earn that kind of money, they're going to stay in New York. It's not happening. They're leaving. If this dude was to get his way, those folks would pay, I think it was 52% of their earnings to New York City in taxes. Well, New York City and the feds when it's all said and done. So that means that you would work for 6 months, a little over 6 months, 6 months and, a week, 6 months and a couple of days to pay taxes. That is insanity. It shouldn't be like that. But for whatever reason, man, people in New York, man, they voted for this socialist and he's out in the open and just letting it be known, I am a socialist. And he's implementing socialistic policies. They're not going to work. How many of you guys think, one, I don't even know if that first one, I don't even know if it opens, but I put any amount of money on it that the other 4, they're not even going to open. He said they're going to put 5. 1 will open. It's not going to last long. And the other ones, they won't even open. They won't open.
It takes years to build apartment complexes. So if you truly wanted to bring down the rent, you would encourage market-based solutions. What you would not do is take failed economic policies of disastrous third world countries where individuals are fleeing in rafts to get here, to escape their socialist countries, and say, you know what we should do? Let's try those things, because that would be idiotic. That would be suicidal. Zohran Mamdani has accurately diagnosed the problem of affordability, the problem of New York leading the country, excluding California, in out-migration. What he has done disastrously is providing antidotes that would only make the problem worse. We all want affordability. Where we disagree as to what to do about it. So Raymond, I believe you use market-tested theories that have worked and alleviated people out of poverty. There is no economic system like capitalism that has alleviated tens and hundreds of millions of people all over the world the way that capitalism has. Has there been excess? Have there been problems? Absolutely. But that does not mean you obliterate the system in its entirety, which is what Mamdani is trying to do, and he's learning quite quickly. You can't do that, which is why he's backtracking on most of his problems. And saying that is not Islamophobia. Saying that is being a rational human being.
It's also
it's quite a damning indictment on the state of our political culture that we have to go on national television and discuss basic market capitalism 101, but I digress. So I'll say 2 things. Number one,
that's probably why he was elected, though. He said he's a socialist, and so maybe a lot of people aren't happy with the way that capitalism is going for them.
Well, I mean, I think I would say probably the most interesting exit poll from the New York City mayoral election was that if you were living in New York City for 10 years or less, you overwhelmingly supported Zohran Mamdani, whereas if you were living in New York City for 10 years or more, like me, even though my co-panelist suggested I don't live there, you supported Andrew Cuomo. I mean, to be fair, I didn't like Andrew Cuomo, but at least it wasn't a socialist. What's great about socialism is you have a documented 100-year history of failure. So you don't actually have to explain these things in depth. You could just look at basically every other country or even locales, where you mentioned San Francisco, where they tried these things and they just never once worked. So again, I'll make 2 quick points. I support Zohran Mamdani in the sense that he's a gifted politician who recognized once actually getting into office that he will never be able to succeed on the policies he campaigned on. So the New York Police Department still has a gang database. The New York Police Department is not being abolished, which is things he wanted to do. Taxes on the rich. have not gone up, even though they're the highest in the nation. The strategic response group is still operating. Cops are still fielding mental health calls. The rent has not been frozen. Rikers Island is still open. So most of his campaign core promises have been broken, and I think that's a good thing. His supporters will pretend they haven't been, but that's just coping. In terms of, in fact, when you title in all entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, we spend roughly $4 trillion on those things every single year. So the idea that we don't have the money to do it is simply not true. What we lack is the competency. I also want to say, and this is incredibly important for everyone to understand, this is not my right-wing talking point. This is data from the Federal Reserve, from the Treasury Department, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's true. The United States middle class is shrinking, but that is because primarily a growing number of households are no longer in the middle class. They are now in the upper middle class income bracket, which starts at roughly $135,000. That is because on an aggregate level, the American people are getting richer. We may not feel that way because, like in New York City, we are the highest tax city in the country, but numbers don't lie. I encourage all of you to Google this yourselves. The middle class is shrinking because Americans are getting wealthier. And I agree, I have a higher chance of being homeless than a billionaire, and that's mostly because I'm a New Yorker who's going to be living under Mamdani's policies, which will kill any incentives that, as I keep saying, property developers, landowners have to build more things and to decrease the amount of wait lines that people have to actually afford a place to live. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up, which is, again, fundamentally, you will never be able to solve a problem, especially in a market-based economy whose primary issue has nothing to do with funding. Okay? I have a flat tire. I can throw $1 million at the tire. It's not going to fix the underlying issue because the tire has nothing to do with how much money I spend on it. The United States does not have a problem with spending money. We spend far too much money as is. And in fact, a significant amount of that money, especially in places like New York and California, are going to bogus, fraudulent programs. What instead we need is a fundamental paradigm shift where instead of diminishing people's wealth, we alleviate as many people as we can out of poverty. And that's why I'm a capitalist, because objectively, you cannot point to any other economic system in the world that has alleviated the amount of impoverishment and poverty that people have experienced. And I'm so concerned about Mamdani because he fundamentally does not believe in that thing. He believes in the warmth of collectivism. He believes that if you have an individual liberty, if you have private ownership, that's inherently white supremacy, that's inherently discriminatory, and we as the government know better. We know best. And that's why I'm concerned not only about New York, but also the future of our country, because many, many young people in our generation who have genuine economic anxieties, who have genuine reasons to be angst about the state of the world, the state of the city, and the state of the economy, they have accurately diagnosed the problem. They have wildly disastrous antidotes that will make all of these problems far, far worse.
Okay, we're almost out of time.
Boom. And he is absolutely right. Oh my goodness, dude knocked it out of the park. He's absolutely right. Socialism has been tried in a multitude of nations. You look at here in the Western Hemisphere, you look at Cuba, you look at Venezuela. Venezuela was the third wealthiest nation in the Western Hemisphere. And all of that went away in about 10 or 15 years under socialism. You cannot implement something that de-incentivizes people to work. You can't implement something that punishes people for doing a great job, for working hard. You can't do it, because eventually the people that do work, they're gonna say, you know what? I'm not working. Why am I doing this to work for these lazy people? I might as well do nothing and just get on the government dole. And when you have everybody on the government dole and no one's working, no one's being creative, no one's building, no one's opening new businesses and things of that nature, yeah, of course the food lines come. Of course the economy crumbles. Of course morale crumbles. Of course poverty explodes. Of course it does. I don't understand why so many young people believe that this is the way. Now, I get it. I get it to an extent, especially if you went to college. For whatever reason, you got a lot of Marxist, socialist, communist professors in these schools, and they're pushing this on these kids. And they keep telling them that, oh, socialism will work. Socialism is good. It's just never been implemented properly. But the thing is that people aren't perfect. And you're expecting, you're expecting flawed individuals to do the right thing all the time. I disagree, but I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on any of this? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on to all so you never miss an upload. As always, keep God first, stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you guys next time. Peace.
It is God who arms me with strength. Yeah, I'm battle ready. He trains my hands for battle. My heart stays steady. But thanks be to God, he gives us the victory. Through my Lord Jesus Christ, fear can't live in me. I was down to the dirt, red clay on my shoes, old pain in my shirt, oh so bruised. In the Lord hit my chest, kicked air from my breath, put power in my step.